Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So before I dive into this video, I just want to remind everybody that I still have my May 2023 Twisted Retreat box giveaway up on my channel. That will include a limited edition of Alan Baxter's Sallow Bend. I did actually just finish that book, and I will have a whole review on it. I have a lot to say about it, but like, spoiler, I really enjoyed it. And I think you guys will really enjoy it too. And I'm very happy that I have this opportunity to do this giveaway. So if you're interested, just check out my Instagram at Prynne for all the details on how to enter and win. And before I officially jump into this, if you guys have not hit that subscribe button already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. I would really love to get to 4,000 subscribers soon. We are getting there. We are definitely getting there. But without further ado, let's talk about today's book review. I teased this in a recent video, but today we will be talking about The Prettiest Girl in the Grave by Kristopher Triana. For those of you guys who have been on my channel for a while, you may know that I have read two works by Kristopher Triana before. A Cold Place for Dying, which was included in a Nightworms package, I want to say back in 2021, which introduced me to his work and convinced me to give what is considered one of the most disturbing books on the market a chance, which is his famed Gone to See the Riverman. Gone to See the Riverman is absolutely as disturbing as people say it is. However, even though I normally don't love disturbing horror, I adored that book. It was my top read of, I think, 2022. It's also one of the first books I read in 2022. It really stuck with me. And I was so thrilled when I found out that he was releasing a new novel. In fact, I think he might even have another book coming out later in the year, but I'm gonna talk about that in a separate video. But yes, I picked up The Prettiest Girl in the Grave pretty much the second I could, because I was so excited to read something else from the author of Gone to See the Riverman. Now, I was a little worried that it was going to be as disturbing as Gone to See the Riverman, and there are definitely some topics in that novel that make me really queasy and uneasy, that I don't normally like reading about, but I thought the way that Triana handled those topics and in the context of the narrative he was telling was brilliant, which is what makes that book both so incredibly deeply disturbing, but also so elevated in the horror genre. I think Kristopher Triana is an incredible author. I think his ability to make you feel one way about a character and then pull the rug out from under you and make you see them in a completely different light, all in the course of like 2 pages, is phenomenal. I've really never seen an author do it so well. So it was definitely something that I was thinking about going into The Prettiest Girl in the Grave. So I'm going to read the back of the book for y'all very quickly, just so you guys know what it's about in case you have not heard of it. So it says, "Some girls are fearful, others are brave. One girl's a princess, the next one a slave. But all girls are equal when they're down in this cave, until just one is left standing, the prettiest girl in the grave." It's only supposed to be a game. When Bella, Celeste, and Rose meet with their new friends at a graveyard in the woods, they soon realize they're unprepared for what's planned. At 20, Aubrey is older than the high schoolers, and she knows of a secret game that's been played by local girls for decades. It starts with personal questions, but quickly moves on to a test of courage as Aubrey guides them into an underground crypt. But even Aubrey doesn't know what they're really getting into. Bella's mother, Holly, may be the only one who does. As a teen, Holly and her friends also played the game, and Holly barely survived. When she discovers her daughter has gone to the graveyard, she fears Bella will get lost in the mysterious catacombs just as she had, and face the same sinister forces. As the girls search for a way out, Holly must return to the dreadful crypt she swore she'd never come back to, and finally face her own dark secrets. So I'm trying to find the best way to chat about this book. As the back of the book says, it is told kind of through 2 different time periods. You have the immediate story with Aubrey, Bella, Celeste, Rose, and then you have the flashback stories that center around Holly, both taking place in the same situation with this game. I found this game to be incredibly original. I found this story to be very original. It definitely pulls a lot of inspiration from Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, including a character who even shares the name with one of the major characters in the House of Usher. I'm not going to dive deep into that, but I really appreciated the way that Triana paid homage to that story without really copying it. What Moves the Dead, oh, was that T. Kingfisher? I believe it was T. Kingfisher. Last year came out as a reimagining of The Fall of the House of Usher, and to me it just felt like a regurgitation and bad fan fiction of The Fall of the House of Usher. This novel, while definitely drawing inspiration from The Fall of the House of Usher, is completely unique, completely original, and yet the inspirational source material is still very much present. And I really, really loved that. So this is not a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher in any way, shape, or form, but if you've read that short story and you read this novel, you will definitely see parallels there that Triana was able to take and kind of completely redesign to fit the narrative he was presenting. The actual game of The Prettiest Girl in the Grave that all of these girls play, I find so creepy. It's so cool and whimsical and fantastical and bizarre. There's this weird, like, almost like Tim Burton-y, like, kitschiness to the game, especially to the, let's call the host of the game, that I wasn't expecting from Triana. And yet, having read, like, Gone to See the Riverman, when you actually meet the Riverman and there's that weird, almost musical sequence, that is very akin to the host of The Prettiest Girl in the Grave. And you can really feel this kind of dark humor that Triana has in creating these truly horrific images. And while they are truly, truly, truly horrific and gross and grotesque and bizarre, there's this weird element of comedy in it that's just so, at the same time, out of place, but also just so Triana that, like, I feel like I would have been disappointed if it had been left out, and I wouldn't have even realized why. Like, I know that sounds very, very confusing, but it's very, very interesting. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to talk about this book without spoiling it. One of the things that I find so effective about Gone to See the Riverman is the villains of that story get revealed and they get what's coming to them. And that is kind of what I was expecting in this story. However, Triana really flips that on its head and kind of introduces us to villains of all shapes and sizes and makes us kind of root for them. But unlike Gone to See the Riverman, we're rooting for them after we learn about, like, their treacherous ways, and it's really interesting. And I really love the way that Triana is able to get inside his reader's mind and manipulate you to be on the side he wants you to be on. You know, I feel like Game of Thrones is a great example where, like, hating characters like Joffrey or Ramsay are so easy because they're such villainous characters. You know, like, you can like their acting and you can like watching them, but you're never gonna root for them. Triana has a way of making you root for the bad guys without even realizing it, and I think he does a very, very different job with The Prettiest Girl in the Grave, but it is something that he tends to do throughout his stories, and I really loved the angle he took with this book because I wasn't expecting it, and it really kind of took me off guard. I wasn't blindsided the way I was with Gone to See the Riverman. The twists and turns in this are pretty predictable, and you kind of see them coming from a mile away, but then they hit you, and they really hit you. And the ending of this I thought was great. I really didn't think there was... I wasn't quite sure how he was going to end it, but having read the ending, I think he really did stick the landing with this. It's disturbing, it's uncomfortable, it's messed up, but it's not the most disturbing and the most uncomfortable, and you don't get that satisfaction that you do at the end of Gone to See the Riverman, where you're like, oh my god, okay, it's over, and that's how it had to end. This one, you're kind of just like, oh, that's how that had to end. That makes sense. I don't know if I'm okay morally with the ending, but it is a great ending. I will say I did give this 4 stars. If I was reading this objectively, it probably would have been a 5-star read, just on the enjoyability of the book, the fact that I read it in like 2 days. I really couldn't put it down. The only reason I put this book down was to go to work and to go to sleep. I devoured this, but I'm comparing it to Gone to See the Riverman, which was also a 4-star read from me, only because in my heart of hearts, I couldn't give Gone to See the Riverman 5 stars because of the disturbing nature of the content of that book. I've said this before with many other books that I know deserve a 5-star rating, but I can't in good conscience give them those ratings because of the content inside of the book. Another book that I did that to was Let the Right One In. Both extremely elevated books that I believe if you're a horror fan, you should absolutely read. But there's just something about the nature of the ick in some of those topics that I just can't give it a 5-star read. However, objectively, Gone to See the Riverman should be a 5-star read. And this should too. However, I'm comparing it to Gone to See the Riverman. And while I do think this is very much better than A Cold Place for Dying, which I did very much enjoy, I don't think it's on the level of Gone to See the Riverman because I didn't feel as emotionally tortured and manipulated by this book the way that I did with Gone to See the Riverman. I think Gone to See the Riverman is way more elevated, but this book is just as fun and original and unique. I really kind of like, I don't want to say cosmic horror, but I really like Triana's imagination behind the supernatural. I think it's really different than any other author out there right now. And that is true of both Gone to See the Riverman and The Prettiest Girl in the Grave. I love these supernatural entities that he's created and the rules that they play behind, and this, again, kind of whimsical nature that they all seem to have where they're kind of toying with humans just for the fun of it. I think that's incredible, and I love, again, the weird dark humor that was rooted in this novel. This is way more lighthearted compared to Gone to See the Riverman, but again, still dark, disturbing. There is some body horror, there is some spider horror, there is some really, really just nasty, nasty characters in this. But I still thoroughly enjoyed it. My biggest hesitation with this novel, honestly, was Triana's like handling of like the goth girl. And not that he's disrespectful at all, but you can tell that he's unfamiliar with like how to speak about like today's like emo and goth culture. Like his age kind of shows, like the way he speaks about it. Like I grew up working at like a Hot Topic. I was very invested in like emo culture and didn't even really realize it until looking back. Like that's just kind of who I was. And I feel like in this, like these characters are like purposely choosing to go goth. I think that's actually a phrase that he uses. And he's like talking about like having like My Chemical Romance, like bumper stickers and stuff like that. And it's just so cringy to read about, because you can just tell that somebody who didn't actually live through like the mid 2000s up until like today's like kind of alternative culture like wrote about it, and it just feels forced and fake. And I really don't think that's Triana's fault necessarily. It just felt very cheesy and cringy and out of touch with the actual scene of this idea of like, oh yeah, like we're misunderstood, so we're intentionally dyeing our hair black and green because we're emo. Like that's like a thing. And the go goth, I was just like, okay, it just felt cheesy. And I can't really hold it against him because he does try really hard to be like respectful of that lifestyle, but it just comes off so dated. And I guess that's because like I lived through that experience that to me I'm just like, I don't think me and my friends ever spoke that way. And it's also really funny because he really lumps emo and goth together, and I feel like goths and emos would like kind of take offense at that. I feel like they very much feel like they're different subcultures. But you can tell Triana kind of thinks they're just like one. And again, like not his fault. Like it was funny to read about. It was just kind of, again, cringy. And that was really the only thing that like really held me back. It would like really take me out of the narrative when I would read like the girls talking to each other about that, because it's just like, you know, I don't really think people do that, but whatever. I really liked the I really liked Aubrey. I thought Aubrey was a really interesting character. I loved how much she wanted to be a cliche, and she was so self-aware of it. Like, there are so many girls in this novel that really are into that kind of alternative culture, and Aubrey is the only one who's like very, very self-aware of it. And there's this great scene where she's like, well, I did this because I wanted it to make a pentagram, or I said that because I thought that would like fit the narrative of like the witch, right? And she's so self-aware, and it's so funny to see her self-awareness compared to Triana's lack of awareness of how the rest of the characters should act. But I really liked Aubrey. I thought her character was really, really interesting. I liked her story, I liked her narrative, I liked the way that she interacted with the rest of the characters. The twist with her I also thought was pretty cool. I saw it coming as more and more, as Triana hinted at it more and more. So I wouldn't say it was a blindsided twist, but it was a fun twist. And I did really like our main character, Bella. I liked her relationship with Rose. I liked her relationship with her mother. But what I liked about Bella is Bella was such a flawed character, but on the grand scheme of things, she was by no means the most flawed character, and by no means the best character either. Like, she was so well rooted in the middle of that gray area of good and evil, and therefore became the most relatable character in my mind. And I thought she made a very, very good focal point for the novel. The vast majority of the novel is obviously told with her as our central figure. And I thought that was a great choice on Triana's part, because he really could have gone several ways, but continuing to pinpoint her as our main I thought was great. And I also thought there's a lot of ambiguity with certain characters and their ends. The storylines with Celeste especially, I really liked how he left that open-ended for our own interpretation of some of the things that she does. And I loved that. I loved that we weren't given all the answers, and you can kind of deduce what you think Triana wants you to have determined happen, but there's also enough of a gray area that you could be totally wrong, and I really loved that. I love that he allowed us to have our own conclusions made about certain characters, but the ones that were most important, he did inform us of what we needed to know. So at the end of the novel, while you still have a few unanswered questions, you don't feel like you've been ripped off with the ambiguity of the ending. It's not like a Paul Tremblay novel where at the end of it you're just kind of like, but what actually happened? No, you get the answers you need, but you are open to interpret other conclusions about certain characters, which I really, really loved and I really appreciated. I love Kristopher Triana's work. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really unique. I think it's both disturbing and original. And while, again, it's not as disturbing as Gone to See the Riverman, it is still messed up. But if you are too scared to read Gone to See the Riverman and you want to be introduced into his writing style, I think this is a great book to start with. And if you loved Gone to See the Riverman, I think you're going to definitely enjoy this. So, grand scheme of things, this book should definitely be a 5-star, but I'm comparing Triana to Triana, and it falls at a 4-star rating solely because Gone to See the Riverman is like one of the best books I've ever read, and this doesn't top it, but still absolutely fantastic. I love this cover. And I just can't wait to see what else he puts out, because I do think he is a truly, truly fantastic author, and I just can't wait to see more from him. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays, and if you enjoy these videos, please hit those like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you on the next one. Mwah.